What if the most powerful military operation in modern history is happening right now, and most of the world has no idea just how deep it goes? This is Pulse America News, and I am Kundi. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will completely change how you understand this conflict. The United States military has now struck more than 8,000 targets inside Iran. 8,000. Let that number sink in for a moment. This is not a limited airstrike. This is not a warning shot. This is a full-scale, coordinated military campaign that is reshaping the entire balance of power in the Middle East, and it is happening faster than most analysts ever predicted. The operation, which officials have been calling Operation Epic Fury, has unleashed a level of military force that the world has not witnessed in decades. And the footage being released by U.S. Central Command in the last several hours shows just how devastating and precise these strikes have been across the entire country of Iran. Let us start with what may be the single most important target struck in this entire campaign. The Natanz nuclear facility, long considered the beating heart of Iran's uranium enrichment program, has been hit. This was not just any target. Natanz was Iran's most protected, most secretive, and most strategically critical nuclear site. For years, world powers negotiated, threatened, and imposed sanctions trying to stop what was happening beneath the ground at Natanz. And now, American forces have struck it directly. Military officials explained the strategy clearly. When you strike a nuclear site, you watch very carefully for any signs of radiation release. If there is no radiation detected after a strike, it tells you one of two things. Either there was no nuclear material at that location, or the strike hit its mark so precisely that the material was contained. In either case, you move on to the next nuclear site on the list. This is a systematic, methodical approach, and it reveals just how serious and how planned this operation truly is. Natanz was one of 3 nuclear-related sites struck over recent months, and each one was approached with the same level of intelligence, preparation, and technological precision. Now, when we talk about the scale of destruction being carried out here, it is important to understand the geography. Iran is a massive country. It is roughly twice the size of Texas. Striking over 8,000 targets across a nation that large requires an extraordinary level of coordination, firepower, and intelligence. And yet, according to the battlefield update delivered by Admiral Cooper, the commander overseeing this entire campaign from U.S. Central Command, the operation is not only on track, it is ahead of schedule. Admiral Cooper's words were blunt and powerful. He said that American forces are taking bold action and that the goal is to completely eliminate Iran's ability to project meaningful power beyond its own borders. That is a breathtaking military objective. And according to the people fighting this war, they are achieving it. Think about what that means in practical terms. Iran's navy is not sailing. Its tactical fighter jets are not flying. Its ability to launch missiles and drones at the rates seen at the beginning of this conflict has been severely degraded. These are not talking points. These are operational realities confirmed by battlefield commanders on the ground, in the air, and at sea. The infrastructure that Iran spent decades building to threaten its neighbors, to control sea lanes, and to intimidate the entire region is being systematically dismantled, target by target, strike by strike. And the weapons being used to accomplish this are remarkable in their own right. The 5,000-pound satellite-guided bunker-busting bombs being deployed in this campaign are some of the most powerful and precise conventional weapons ever created. These are not the kind of bombs that miss. They are designed specifically to penetrate deep underground, to reach hardened and buried facilities that were built precisely to survive conventional attacks. Iran's nuclear program did not go underground by accident. It went underground because Iran's leaders believed that going underground would protect it. Those leaders were wrong. These bunker busters are tearing through reinforced concrete and steel to reach targets that were once considered untouchable. And beyond the nuclear sites, These same weapons are destroying anti-ship missile systems, anti-cruise missile infrastructure, intelligence hubs, and radar installations across the country. The radar sites deserve special attention because of what they reveal about Iran's broader strategy. According to officials, Iran has been using these radar installations not just for military purposes, but as a kind of control mechanism over the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most economically critical choke points on the entire planet. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that narrow body of water. Iran understood this, and it positioned itself to essentially act as a gatekeeper, using its radar and missile systems to threaten any vessel that it chose to target. Military commanders described this arrangement as a toll booth, a system through which Iran could extract leverage from the global economy simply by threatening to close or disrupt the strait. Destroying those radar sites and the missile systems that back them up is not just a military objective. It is an economic one. It is about restoring the free flow of global trade and energy through one of the world's most important waterways. And here is something that is not getting enough attention. The cost of this conflict is already being felt at gas stations across America. When the Strait of Hormuz is under threat, oil prices rise. When oil prices rise, Americans pay more at the pump, opening that strait back up. Ensuring that tankers can move freely without fear of Iranian missiles or drone attacks is directly connected to the economic well-being of ordinary American families. This is not an abstract foreign policy debate. This is something that touches the daily lives of people who are simply trying to fill up their cars and get to work. Now let us talk about something that represents a genuine milestone in military history. During this operation, U.S. Army HIMARS rocket launchers carried out what officials are describing as the longest artillery strike in the entire history of the United States Army. HIMARS, which stands for High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, is already one of the most celebrated and feared weapons platforms in the modern American arsenal. It gained enormous international attention during recent conflicts in Eastern Europe, where it proved devastatingly effective at hitting high-value targets at long ranges. But what was accomplished here takes things to an entirely different level. The precision strike munitions fired from these launchers, guided by satellite, flew deeper into Iranian territory than any previous ground-launched rocket system had ever reached. These are not old-fashioned artillery rounds that scatter across a target area. These are precision-guided rockets that can travel hundreds of miles and hit a specific building, a specific room, a specific piece of military equipment. The fact that this record was set during Operation Epic Fury tells you everything you need to know about the ambition and the capability of the forces prosecuting this campaign. But this war is not being fought by America alone. Israel is deeply involved, and understanding the dynamic between these two allied forces is absolutely essential to understanding where this conflict goes from here. President Trump recently posted on his Truth Social platform that he is considering winding down the war, striking what many observers described as an optimistic tone about reaching American military objectives quickly. That is consistent with his broader approach to military force, which favors decisive, rapid action followed by a clear exit. He famously demonstrated this philosophy during Operation Midnight Hammer, which achieved its goals swiftly and ended quickly. The president appears to want the same outcome here. However, Israel's objectives in this conflict may not perfectly align with Washington's timeline. The Israeli military is pursuing a different kind of campaign alongside the American strikes, while U.S. forces are focused primarily on hard military targets. Iran's missile infrastructure, air defense systems, naval assets, and nuclear facilities. Israeli forces are conducting a more targeted campaign aimed at Iranian military leadership and the Basij, which is Iran's powerful paramilitary force. The Basij has been one of the primary instruments through which the Iranian government suppresses internal dissent and projects power at the grassroots level. Taking it apart requires a different kind of warfare, one that is slower, more patient, and less amenable to the kind of clean ending that President Trump is signaling he wants. This tension between a powerful ally that wants a quick exit and a partner with deeper, longer-term objectives is not new in military history, but it is critically important right now. The president was reportedly displeased when Israeli forces struck Iranian oil fields, an action that risked escalating the conflict beyond the boundaries that Washington had carefully drawn. Oil field strikes send a very different message than strikes on military sites. They threaten Iran's economic foundations in ways that could provoke unpredictable responses and could involve other regional and global powers in ways that neither Washington nor Tel Aviv can fully control. And speaking of other powers, the situation around the Strait of Hormuz is already producing some fascinating and complicated back-channel diplomacy. India, which depends heavily on Iranian oil and has extensive trade relationships in the region, has reportedly been quietly negotiating deals with Iranian authorities to allow Indian tankers to pass through the strait safely. This is exactly the kind of fragmentation that major conflicts produce. Countries that are officially neutral or officially allied start making their own arrangements, carving out their own exceptions, protecting their own economic interests, even as the larger military campaign rages around them. China is expected to do the same. Beijing imports enormous quantities of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, and it will not sit back indefinitely and watch its energy supply lines be disrupted. Expect Chinese diplomatic back-channels to be working overtime right now, even if Beijing says nothing publicly. Meanwhile, Iran itself is not finished. Despite the catastrophic damage to its military infrastructure, the country has managed to fire 2 medium-range ballistic missiles at the American military installation on the island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. That target was chosen deliberately. Diego Garcia is one of the most strategically important American military bases in the entire Indo-Pacific region. It serves as a hub for long-range bomber operations, naval logistics, and intelligence gathering across a vast area of the globe. Targeting it is Iran's way of signaling that even in its wounded state, it retains the will and some degree of the capability to strike back against American power projection far beyond its own neighborhood. This signal should not be dismissed. A wounded adversary that still has missiles and still has the motivation to use them remains dangerous. There is also a disturbing allegation that has been raised by officials regarding Iran's ballistic missile program. The accusation is that Iran has been using its civilian space launch program as a cover to develop and advance its long-range ballistic missile capabilities. Space launches and ballistic missile development share enormous amounts of technology. The rocket motors, the guidance systems, the re-entry vehicle technology, all of it has dual uses. By framing missile tests as satellite launches, Iran was allegedly able to advance a weapons program while maintaining a degree of international legitimacy. This kind of deception, if confirmed, represents one of the most serious violations of international arms control norms in recent years, and it provides a significant part of the legal and moral justification for the military campaign now being carried out against Iran's infrastructure. Then there is the question that may be the most important and the most troubling of all. If this war is going to end, who exactly is America and Israel going to negotiate with? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently admitted candidly that he does not know who is actually running Iran right now. Think about that for a moment. The leader of one of the most sophisticated intelligence services on the planet, a man with decades of experience dealing with Iran, says he does not know who is in charge. That is not a minor uncertainty. That is a fundamental problem for any diplomatic process aimed at ending the conflict. The reason for this confusion lies in how Iran structured its command and control system. The country has 31 provinces, and military and government authorities had prearranged decentralized command structures so that in the event of exactly this kind of large-scale strike campaign, power would not simply collapse from the top down. Instead, authority is distributed across dozens of regional commanders. each operating with a degree of independence and each following pre-given orders about what to do in the face of the kind of devastating strikes being carried out right now. You cannot simply call Tehran and negotiate with a single decision-maker. There may not be a single decision-maker left who has the authority or the legitimacy to speak for the entire country. This decentralization was almost certainly a deliberate design choice made by Iranian military planners years ago, precisely because they understood that one of the first things a sophisticated adversary would do in a conflict is try to decapitate the leadership. By spreading authority across the country, they made decapitation strikes less decisive. They ensured that even if the top leadership was killed, destroyed, or driven underground, the country's military and paramilitary forces would keep operating according to pre-planned instructions. It is a resilient and frustrating design, and it means that ending this war will require either achieving such total military dominance that resistance becomes impossible, or finding some way to reach enough of those 31 provincial commanders to assemble something resembling a negotiating partner. In the meantime, a large American amphibious-ready group has departed from San Diego, and officials estimate it will take approximately 1 month to arrive in the operational theater. An amphibious-ready group is not a support asset. It is a power projection force carrying thousands of Marines and the equipment needed to conduct operations ashore. Its deployment signals that American planners are not yet closing the door on requiring ground forces in some capacity, even if the primary campaign continues to be dominated by air power, naval strikes, and long-range precision fires. What we are witnessing right now is history in motion. The entire strategic architecture of the Middle East is being rewritten in real time. The power relationships, the threat calculations, the economic arrangements, the military balances that have defined the region for decades are all being torn up and renegotiated by fire. Whether this ends quickly as the president hopes, or whether it drags into a longer and more complicated campaign as the complexities on the ground suggest, the world will not look the same on the other side of it. This is Pulse America News. I am Kundi. Keep watching, keep questioning, and stay with us as we continue to bring you every development from this critical moment in world history.